Most of my clients with a family history of migraines feel like they're doomed to a life of migraines too. I mean, it's not like you can do anything to change genetics, right? Or is there? In this video, I'm going to show you that we actually can change the genes we were born with, which means that aren't stuck with your mom's migraines after all. My name is Dr. Tanya Paynter. I am a naturopathic doctor who specializes in treating women with chronic migraines. I started out because I had suffered from migraines and daily headaches since I was 16. And well over a decade later, it took me that long to finally understand that we can actually control migraines much more effectively than with just medication alone. And all of the things that I have learned since then is, what I focus on to really help approach migraines from a whole body standpoint. And that's one of the reasons why I think focusing in on things like genetics can be such a huge and important piece to the migraine treatments, because it's a piece that's ignored, but it's a piece that we definitely know plays a role in migraines, especially when there's a strong family history. So most women with migraines that run in the family think that that's just the life that they've been born to, right? Their sisters have it, their mothers have it, their aunts, their grandmother, their daughter, or it could also happen in the men of the family as well. Some are just resolved to the fact that this is the hand that God dealt them, but we're not actually stuck with the genes that we're born with. I mean, we are and we're not. There's a lot that we can do to change how those genes function. So in this video, I wanted to kind of step you through the basic underlying principle of how genes are affecting migraines and how you can actually use your family history to understand which genes are affected, and then help you understand the idea that we can actually improve how those genes function, even if we can't change the genes themselves. So first of all, let me review some of the genes that are affecting migraines. There's actually quite a bit of research on the genes that play a role in migraines in families. So there's not one particular migraine gene, but we do have actually quite a list of genes that do affect migraines. So by looking at other family traits, not just the migraines, but things like anxiety, depression, bipolar, autistic spectrum, ADD, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, things like that, we can actually isolate which genes are likely affecting your migraines based on that family history. So let's take a couple of examples. So number one, we have anxiety, depression. This is actually fairly common. That can be related to hormones. It can be related just to how our neurotransmitters are built in our body, and that comes down to genes. There are several genes that are responsible for producing and breaking down those neurotransmitters. So when we see anxiety and depression running in the family, then we know very likely there's a problem with the MAOA gene, or monoamine oxidase A gene. And that's the gene that produces the enzyme that breaks down some of our neurotransmitters. So then we can kind of isolate the MAOA gene as a likely culprit of your migraine picture, as well as understanding that this is going to be playing a role in some of the mood things that you've got going on as well. Let's take another example. So I mentioned that the mood stuff can be related to hormones. So maybe your family has a long history of hormonal issues, endometriosis, PCOS, really heavy and painful periods, really bad PMS symptoms, and it kind of runs in the family. So there is a gene called the COMT gene, COMT. And that is responsible for largely responsible for breaking down estrogen in the body. And so when we see a lot of estrogen dominant symptoms relating to the period, which are the things that I just mentioned, then we're suspicious that the COMT gene is not working if we see this pattern running in the family. And also the COMT gene also plays a role in neurotransmitter breakdown as well. And so then we can see some of the hormonal and mood things that come along with that picture. And so again, then we can focus in based on your family history and your symptoms, we can hone in on those genes that might be involved. And again, we have research that shows that the COMT gene is involved in migraine situations. Then there's also kind of branching off from the mood stuff. Let's take a look at cardiovascular. So you have high blood pressure, you have a family history of high blood pressure, or conversely, you have low blood pressure. If there's been a history of cardiovascular disease, all of these things have a link to a gene called NOS3, NOS3, and that's responsible for how our blood vessels expand and contract, dilate or constrict. And again, we know that that is a huge trigger for migraine. So if there's a cardiovascular and a migraine component in a family history, absolutely we're looking at a NOS3 gene that is not working optimally. So in order to really fully understand what genes you might be struggling with, you can also get genetic testing done. You don't just have to try to put symptoms and family history along with what the genes do, because that's for me to do. But for you, it might be more helpful to get some genetic testing done, so you can really investigate which ones are not optimal, and which ones you really need to focus in on. So now let's talk about what we can do about that. Once we've isolated some of the genes that aren't working, there's an idea called epigenetics. So this is something that we've known for a while, that we can actually influence how our genes work. We can't change our genes, but we can change how they function. We can make them work well, and we can also make them work not so well. And it comes down to a lot of lifestyle, dietary, nutritional things, a lot of things that you can do to help optimize how your body works. Now, you can't always add all these things at once, because some of the dietary stuff might actually trigger a migraine for you. Exercise is another really good thing to help kind of clean up the genes. But again, a lot of people with migraines have exercise sensitivity and can't, because it will stimulate a migraine, which is kind of a negative loop, because that can come back to some of the neurotransmitters, which can come back to some of the genes. So you're kind of stuck in this negative cycle in some cases. But there's definitely things from a nutrient standpoint that you can pinpoint that will help to support those genes working better. And as you look at the biochemical pathways relating to these genes, you can see which nutrients you really need to target those particular pathways to make the genes more effective and to make those pathways more effective. So this is a huge tool that is not utilized in conventional medicine, and it's crafted to you as an individual, understanding your genetic makeup and how your genes are playing a role in your migraines. And we can utilize that information, and there's testing available, and there's also neurotransmitter testing available and hormone testing available. You get those three things in, and you basically have an outline of all the things that are not working well in your body to help you really target your treatment for migraines towards those biochemical imbalances. So hopefully that makes sense. I didn't go too in depth because it can be a hugely overwhelming thing. Mainly the point of this video is just to let you know that there is actually a lot that we can do, even if you have a family history of migraines. And it can be a huge eye opener to understand that we can positively influence those genetic markers to make you feel better. So as a free gift to you, I've linked it below in the description, is a free outline of what those genes do, how it's relating, which also can give you a little bit better understanding of maybe some of your other systemic symptoms that might be playing a role. So you might see, oh, well, I've got a lot of period problems. I think I really have an issue with the COMT gene. It gives you some other resources and things to look at. And so hopefully you find that helpful. So you can click the link in the description below, and it will take you over to be able to download your free copy of that. So I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or drop me a comment if you have a question. I'm happy to answer it for you. And we'll see you in the next video.